Hello and welcome to this week's edition of On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. I'm your host, Chris Greene, Director of Network Expansion for Avoya Travel, and we've been off the last few weeks. Some of that was traveling, had a chance to do a couple of the inaugural sailings out of Florida in the month of November, and some of that was the Thanksgiving holiday. So it's nice to be back, and it's nice to be back home in my home studio for today's show. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you find something about today's program to engage with, because that's our number one goal with On Deck with Avoya, to start to engage with you, to share details of our best-in-class resources and create a jumping off point for a new relationship, one built on a shared success relationship. And you can get started anytime you want. You can put in your request at avoyanetwork.com today. And of course, at the end of today's program, we'll have all of our contact information. We do have a great show lined up for you today, including our Eye on the Industry feature, where we will discuss record-breaking Thanksgiving travel. Yeah, people out in droves. New regulations for international visitors to the United States, the latest news about young cruisers and vaccine requirements, as well as news from right here at Avoya Travel as we welcome in a new investor and we get ready for a major growth phase. All of those stories coming up shortly. We're going to welcome in a great affiliate today for our Meet the Network segment. Kandy Benedetti, owner of Be Anywhere Travel, an independent affiliate and the Avoya Travel Network, will be joining us for a question and answer session. And I very much look forward to Kandy being on the show in just a few minutes. We'll spend a few minutes discussing our new to travel program for those of you with that entrepreneurial spirit, but no experience in the industry. We've got a great program for you, and it's getting better by the day. And of course, we'll highlight our program for those of you with industry experience as well. I want to go back a few weeks to my last program and a statement that Jesse Morris made. Jesse, the owner of WeBook Travel LLC, also an independent affiliate in the Avoya Travel Network. And Jesse had joined me live at Cruise World in Miami Beach a few weeks ago. And he said, and I really believe Jesse's right, he said, we're not just going to have a wave season this year, we're going to have a wave year. You can already feel it building as I hear of amazing sales being made day after day by affiliates in our network. And we hope you catch the wave too. In fact, we hope you're part of the wave is the best part you've ever had. But we're always happy and we're always here to share details of how our affiliates continue to be the industry leaders by being part of the #1 host agency in the industry, and that's Avoya Travel. So let's kick off this week's On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update with some industry insights and our Eye on the Industry feature. If you had doubts about people and their willingness to travel, well, look no further than the numbers being reported from last week's Thanksgiving holiday travel. Pandemic air travel in the United States hit a new high on Sunday with nearly 2.5 million passengers screened. Wow. The Transportation Security Agency screened 2.45 million people nationwide. That was on Sunday, and that topped the previous record that was only set the day before Thanksgiving last week, too. And when you factor in the total 10-day Thanksgiving travel period, a total of 20.9 million people passed through U.S. airports, and that's almost 90%, 90% of pre-COVID numbers. In anticipation of the travel surge, the TSA has hired an additional 6,000 TSA screening agents. International travel to the United States will have some new regulations soon. We're getting word that the Biden administration is preparing to implement new travel guidelines that would require proof of a negative COVID test taken within 1 day of flying into the United States. And that's for vaccinated people too. A spokesperson from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed these talks. The expected change comes as the country beefs up surveillance for the Omicron variant, the first case of which was found in the United States and California. And the CDC said that person traveled from South Africa to the US on November 22nd. Now, under the current guidelines, people from other countries who are not fully vaccinated cannot travel to the US, while people who are fully vaccinated can, as long as they provide proof of a negative COVID test taken within 3 days of traveling. For unvaccinated Americans, the guideline already require proof of a negative test within 1 day, and this potential new rule would expand that 1 day requirement to all vaccinated travelers coming into the United States from other countries. Time for some cruise news that focuses on younger cruisers and mandates for vaccinations. Disney Cruise Lines became the first major cruise line to change their policy in regards to passengers between the ages of 5 and 11. Now, starting on sailings that begin January 13th or later, again with Disney, all guests 5 and older will have to be vaccinated to sail. The change in policy comes after the CDC approved the Pfizer BioNTech vaccines for children 5 to 11 years old. That happened on November 2nd. Celebrity cruise lines quickly followed suit, announcing the same policy for all sailings that begin February 1st or later. But sister brand, Royal Caribbean International, is taking a wait-and-see approach. As Vicki Freed, Senior Vice President of Sales, Trade Support, and Service, mentioned in her weekly online coffee chat episode, at this time, we've not made any decisions on the vaccine requirements for children 5 to 11. We're still in a wait-and-see period. We're evaluating it. But should we make a change to our protocols and require this, we'll give you plenty of notice so that families can get their children vaccinated. Royal Caribbean International currently allows guests 5 to 11 to board with a negative COVID test. And of course, we'll continue to follow this situation as it has big impacts on many agencies and their clients. And finally, wow, big news from right here at Avoya Travel as we get ready for a major growth spurt. Avoya Travel, one of the travel industry's most innovative companies, is pleased to announce that it's closed on an investment from funds managed by Certares Management LLC, a global travel, tourism, and hospitality investment firm. Certares joins brothers Jeff and Michael Anderson as co-owners of Avoya Travel, and together are committed to a long-term growth and scaling its vacation platform. Terms of the transaction were not disclosed. We're honored to welcome Certares as a partner in Avoya Travel. It's taken tremendous endurance to build our industry-leading platform, and we're excited for our brilliant employees, independent travel advisors, and suppliers, especially during these unprecedented times. That from Jeff Anderson, co-owner and co-CEO of Avoya. Jeff went on to say, we look forward to partnering with Certares to capitalize on the growth opportunities we see ahead as our industry begins its strong recovery. Avoya continues to invest in its people and technology, which despite the global pandemic has driven record high customer satisfaction ratings. Avoya's new investment from Certares will further position Avoya as an industry leader and accelerate the company in its pursuit to perfect vacation shopping, planning, and booking. This is big news. And if you're looking to hitch your wagon to a star that's ready to take off in a huge way, this is your time, and you should definitely reach out and start the conversation with a network expansion specialist. Find out how best-in-class resources can help your agency hit its maximum potential. One of the things I missed most over the last few weeks when we're off and not taping On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update, is chatting with the people that make our industry just amazing to be part of. Whether that's my incredible coworkers who I'm proud to feature in our Meet the Team segments, or industry executives who are kind enough to give us a few moments for a discussion, or as the case this week, chatting and discussing the latest in travel with a brilliant owner of an agency in the Avoya Travel Network. Kandy Benedetti, owner of Be Anywhere Travel, an independent agency in the Avoya Travel Network, joining me in just a few seconds for today's Meet the Network segment. Kandy and I go way back. I was the one that helped her when she wanted to join our network years ago. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. And since then, Kandy has become one of the top producing agents in the Avoya Travel Network and continues to operate a successful agency as the owner of Be Anywhere Travel. And I'm very excited to feature her story today. So without further ado, let's welcome in our featured Meet the Network guest, Kandy Benedetti, owner of Be Anywhere Travel, an independent agency in the Avoya Travel Network. Kandy, thanks so much for your time. And thanks for being our guest today on Deck with Avoya.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. Kandy, tell me a little bit about how you became interested in being a travel professional and how your journey had you become an affiliate in the Avoya Travel Network.
Well, I've always been interested in travel, but I took a long time to pursue my interests. After I graduated from college, I took a career path in law and worked in the legal field for over 20 years. As I started to take trips, I knew that I wanted to do something in travel. I just felt it was a passion I had. And so I took an online course, one of those overnight things that when back in the late 90s were, when anyone could be a travel agent. And I took it, and then I joined another host agency. It didn't work out that well because I still working full time and I wasn't getting any leads. So in November of 2013, I went to a ship inspection luncheon and sitting at a table with a group of travel agents. And I said, so how do you guys get your leads? And they're like, oh, well, there's this company called Avoya. they give you leads. I'm like, are you kidding? Oh, I got to sign up. So I went home, I went on the website, signed up, and I got a call from a guy named Greene. And he says to me, well, what's your background? I said, I went on a trip. I've been on some cruises. He goes, your travel background. I booked a trip to Disney for a friend. He's like, well, we're looking for seasoned agents who, have experience. He says, but if you take this class, this career quest, we'll reevaluate your application. I'm like, oh, okay. So I take the class. And of course, it took me a little while because I could only do it at night. And so I finished it and I called him again. I said, Chris, I finished that class. I'm ready to go. He's like, well, okay, well, let me get your application approved and we'll go from there. So finally, in March of 2014, I became an Avoya independent agent, which I thought was going to change everything. But, you need time and you need to put in time. And that's how I kind of became the agent with Avoya, an independent agent, I should say.
You got to have some bites at the apple sometimes, right? And you got to have some opportunities so that you can start to lay down your best practices, your system, and how it's going to fit you, right? And you kind of have to go sometimes around that whole cycle one or two times before all the pieces start to click. But when you have passion and you're dedicated and you want to follow through, amazing things can happen. And we'll get to the best part of your story here in just a second. But was travel always important to you growing up, Kandy? I mean, did you get a chance to travel a lot as a kid and things like that?
No. I come from northern Vermont, and my father is a true Vermonter. You don't leave the state. You stay in the state. Your vacation is your home. That's what he always said. When all my friends were going to Disney or my cousins were going camping, he would say, our home is our camper. We do not need Disney. So we never went anywhere as a kid. And I think that was kind of what I was envious of all of my friends and my family traveling, that I think it fueled my passion, that I said to myself, someday I'm going to travel, because I never did as a child.
Now, before you became a travel professional, did you have that one trip though that kind of was like, wow, this is really life-changing and eye-opening?
The first time I went to Disney was in 1993. And I was like, oh my God, how could I have missed this? How I would have loved to do this as a kid. And that was another thing. I said, you know what, my kids, when I have kids, I'm going to take them there. And since 2005, I've gone to Disney every single year, at least twice a year. So yeah, passion.
Absolutely. I know today's appearance is slightly bittersweet, Kandy, because we'd hoped to have you live from Europe. You were going to be our first international guest live from a Viking River cruise as you toured the Christmas market, and just didn't happen. As a travel professional and an enthusiastic traveler, tell me a little bit about why you had to cancel your trip and how, as a person, not just a travel professional, you reconcile that.
Yes, I was supposed to be on the Danube coming live to you, but we were supposed to go to the Christmas markets, and when they locked down Austria, they started shutting down Germany. My husband and I had to make that decision. And, I want, to tell people that it's safe to travel, but when you're locking down a country, you kind of have to be realistic. You kind of, the travel agent is still going like, oh, I have to go because I can tell people I went, it's okay. But when I'm going to see the Christmas markets and there's no Christmas markets, and then as a personal thing for me, it was like, well, why am I going? And I think that's what I struggled with when I found clients canceling. I didn't understand why. I understood COVID, and yet you can't go. But if things are open, why aren't you going? And that always was like, people, seriously, just go. It's okay. But when you're trying to go and you're save that money, this is your lifetime thing that you've been planning for, and things aren't open, then you have to kind of step back and say, you know what, I will go at a later date, because you don't want to spend that money and not be able to see what you want to see. So
yeah,
it was kind of like, oh. Next year.
Is the silver lining, Kandy, the fact that now you've been through some of the same frustrations firsthand that clients have experienced? Will that give you a chance to be closer to your clients as far as some of the issues they've dealt with over the last couple of years with COVID?
Yeah, I think that kind of opened my eyes because I was only seeing things as a travel agent and not seeing a thing as a personal interest. It was more like, okay, so they're canceling another one because we've all had tons of cancellations. And, even though I've traveled since, I think I've traveled all during the pandemic. I went to Disney, I think 3 or 4 times because no lines. It was great. But we traveled. But this one here, I think was an eye opener saying, okay, things are closed. There's a reason they're closed. We have to be smart. And then I got it. Then it clicked as, not a travel agent, but as a person. So it was eye opening.
I'm sure. Kandy Benedetti, owner of Be Anywhere Travel, an independent agency in the Avoya Travel Network, is our featured Meet the Network guest today. Kandy, as we talk a little bit more about you again as a professional in the Avoya Travel Network, can you share with us some of the resources that are offered by Avoya Travel that you use as an agency owner and you find vital to your agency's success?
Well, of course, there's the leads. And like I said, when I first started, I figured I would take a lead. And because the lead was generated, that must be they're interested. So it's going to be easy. Close, they're interested. They want to go. You send your nice little email saying, hey, book with me. And when you didn't get a response, you would get the negative response. Or like, oh, how can they reject me? I'm nice. My email was pleasant. And so I reached out to, and we at that time we had the mastermind program just kind of kicking off, and travel academies were, not as abundant as they are now, but I would go to those and I would just talk to other IAs. You can get leads, but the IAs in Avoya are like family. I have built some great relationships with them. I have called very successful IAs, and they've walked me off the cliff sometimes. It's just, you need to have that support, and the Avoya family gives it to you. I have attended webinars, academies, mastermind program, and without those, I wouldn't be here today. Because the first year at Avoya, my sales were a whopping $85,000. That was it. And I was like, I'm never gonna make this great, and I was kind of, sad because I was gonna have to give up this passion. But, Avoya kept, saying, hey, try this. Other IAs were giving me advice. And, I took it all in and see what worked best for me. And today I'm sitting here as $1 million plus agent. So I'm like, how does that happen?
That's fantastic. Congratulations. And not just congratulations because it happened, but congratulations for putting in the work to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? For being accepting of those ideas and tips and things like that, because some people come into this with a very narrow window and they can't see past that. And when somebody offers them advice, they don't always take them up on that. So it does take somebody special to incorporate ideas from other people and then to have the success that you've had. Again, congratulations. That's fantastic. So let's put you in that chair then. What advice would you offer, Kandy, to a potential travel professional or affiliate in our network on the type of research they should do prior to making a decision on joining a host or a franchise, going it alone, not getting in this crazy business?
I would have to say, when I look back, I don't know why you wouldn't join Avoya. I mean, the opportunities that they give you are, abundant. And if you put the work in, you will be rewarded. I mean, I have gone on trips that I would never have thought of as a kid. And I've put in a lot of time, but you have to do that research. What fits your business plan? Where do you want to go with your business? I wanted to take it just as a part-time thing, just to get some benefits, never thinking that would generate much income. And the more and more I worked, I think it became addicting because the leads would pop up and you would want to take one. And, oh, I closed that one. Oh, I got to do it again. You'll be up till 10 o'clock at night, just, doing stuff. And the next thing it's 1 o'clock in the morning. My husband's like, what have you been doing? I'm working, I'm selling. I mean, this is the most exciting thing ever. And, for me, it clicked, but the time I put in to make it click and the resources I use, and having that Avoya, all of that stuff, I think that when you're looking at finding a host agency, you need to see what works best for you. I mean, not everybody is going to put in the time, and don't assume that just because you get leads, they're going to close and you're going to make, all this money. No, it takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work.
But there are some benefits down the road, right? I mean, and we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes too. But what are you hearing from clients, Kandy, on their willingness to travel? And as a follow-up, what are some of the destinations or brands that you're hearing a lot about that your clients are considering for 2022?
Well, being part of my success is just limiting my specialties. And my clients are Colette clients, Waterways, and Windstar tend to be my top brands. And of course, my Colette this past year, a lot of US tours because they felt safe. Now they're starting to branch out and booking Europe because they're thinking that Europe's going to be okay. The same as obviously is a lot of Europe. I think that, they're itching to go. And there's two types of clients. One who are the seasoned travelers who they don't care what's going on in the world. They just want to go. And then you have your cautious clients who are like, what do you think? And I think being well-informed helps me, especially because I've traveled now overseas, it's nice to tell them what to expect. And I give them that piece that they need to travel. News, worst resource ever. I have to say that the news blows a lot of stuff out of proportion, because I had a client going to Hawaii. She was like going to cancel because Hawaii was all this stuff. I had the tour manager from Hawaii call her, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's not as bad as I thought. He's there, and we're hearing all this other stuff that's not true. And I'm like, yes, don't, it's just calming the client, I think, is the most important thing to get them to travel.
I think you really, nailed something there when you talk about one of the things I think a travel professional really brings to the table is their abundance as far as relationships, right? So that you had the relationship with the tour manager, that they would pick up the phone and call your client. And it just shows not only the power of the relationships that happen in the Avoya Travel Network, but the power of relationships and why people like Kandy Benedetti are so vital, and why you should be just insane if you would think about traveling and not using a travel professional. And that has to be one of the good things, right, Kandy, is that we're just not just me saying that, but we're hearing that from so many places. I think people really are starting to understand how vital a travel professional is to that success of that trip.
Yeah, I mean, even when the whole cancellation thing is, client would call and say, I'm not going to go. I would take care of it, and they would get their refund. And then you hear people who didn't use a travel agent still waiting to get refunds because they don't know who to call. And the place that they booked their trip is inundated with phone calls. So, and I would just say, oh, well, sorry, should have used a travel agent.
Right, exactly. Overall, I mean, none of us have a crystal ball, but overall, do you remain optimistic about the future of leisure travel?
I'm always optimistic. I mean, I just see it, I think that we're going to go through some ups and downs. But when we are getting ready to peak, we're just going to, like you said, it's going to be a wave season, or Jesse said, it's going to be a wave season for the next year or two. I think we just have to get through, this next little thing. We have to treat it like the flu. There's going to be variants, there's going to be, mutations, but we have to be optimistic, because if you're not optimistic, then you shouldn't be in the business, because you have to be optimistic in order for your clients to hear that in your voice.
Absolutely. And nothing says I'm optimistic more than your personal travel. So anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to getting out and seeing yourself soon?
Yes. Well, I'm going to be going on a Virgin voyage here in January. Yeah, can't wait for that one. I'm hoping to go on a Tulip Time cruise in March. Hint, hint. Anybody in Avoya listening? And of course, we're going to Disney 2 times next year, and hopefully Italy in November.
Nice. That sounds like a pretty amazing 2022. And we all know that the travel benefits are a great perk of being a travel professional. I mean, it's hard work and everything that we've talked about in this conversation, but the perks are pretty nice. What's a trip that you've been fortunate enough to take, Kandy, because you are in the travel industry?
Oh, best cruise ever. I took a cruise, the river cruise on Crystal with other Avoya agents for the best of best in March of 2019. And it was amazing, amazing. Crystal was a great cruise line. You know, being able to be with other IAs, just IAs, that was kind of cool. And I met some great people on that cruise who I have lasting friendships today. So it was a great cruise.
Everything that travel is supposed to be. Kandy, one last question before we let you go. What's one effective way to engage with your client base that you could pass along and maybe help out another travel professional or somebody who's about to get into our industry?
Well, something that was told to me many years ago was, you know, say thank you, send out postcards after you book their trip. And I do that today, still do that today. I wish people happy birthdays, where I actually get emails saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you knew it was my birthday. And then around this time of year, I always send out a thank you card. Or this year I did actually magnets with a calendar for 2022 and just thanking my clients, and not a sales technique, just saying thank you for being my client. And I tried to touch base as much as possible because they forget sometimes, and you're just there to remind them that you're here for them.
Yeah, and I think sometimes just being genuine is an amazing closing technique that I think sometimes we get caught up in all of the sales stuff and we forget that just being a genuine person with a genuine interest about their well-being is really a great way to help close sales. Kandy Benedetti, owner of Be Anywhere Travel, an independent agency in the Avoya Travel Network. Kandy, thank you again for your time and that fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Chris. Nice talking to you.
You as well. Really excited for your success too. Next week, we have a great guest booked again, this time for a Meet the Industry segment with Ken Ritchie. Now, Ken is an attorney and partner with Holland & Knight, who also happens to be the husband of our Vice President of Network Engagement, Tammy Ritchie. And Ken is a frequent speaker at Avoya travel events, and he's going to join me for a great Q&A on his involvement in the travel industry, as well as his advice for ways business owners can protect themselves and their assets. And I look forward to having Ken as our featured guest next week during On Deck with Avoya. All right, so let's talk a little bit about being new to the travel industry, because if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit and you're hearing Kandy and I's conversation and you're thinking this might be a great path for me, well, we're happy to talk about the latest in Avoya Travel's New to the Travel Industry program, where you can build your new business with industry-leading resources, gain access to marketing and technology, support, education, and so much more. But you can be your own boss. You can set your own hours. And of course, all you have to do is reach out. One of the network expansion specialists, more than happy to provide all the details, answer all of your questions, and go step by step about the things that it's going to take, the investment that you're going to have in order to be a member of the Avoya Travel Network. What about our friends that have been in the industry for a while, have experience? Well, we would love to talk to you too. Are you an experienced travel advisor looking for more support for your business? Are you looking for best-in-class resources that can really help take you to the next level? Avoya Travel, as the #1 host agency in the industry, has those best-in-class resources. And you heard us talking about in our news feature, our new partnership with Stars, at that new investment. Avoya Travel is going to be in a major growth phase. This is an amazing time for you to get involved. Again, reach out to a network expansion specialist. They're more than happy to have that conversation with you. They'll go over the resources. We'll see if it's a good fit. If it's a good fit, we can start to put together a shared success relationship. And that's what Avoya Travel is known for. So how do you reach out to Avoya Travel? Well, all in all, it is pretty easy. There's my contact information on the screen. Chris.Greene at avoyatravel.com is my email. There's the phone number, avoyanetwork.com. And if you want to put your phone up with the camera on, you can use a little QV, I was going to say QVC, but I don't think that's what it's called. But anyway, QV code, or I'm not that much of a computer person. But if you put your camera up, just like you get the menu at the restaurant, you'll get information on Avoya Travel. And we would love to hear from you. You can leave us a message here on Facebook or YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to either one of our channels. It's the best way to stay informed. We appreciate your time. We'll be back next week with Ken Ritchie. A big thank you to my guest today, Kandy Benedetti. A big thank you to our producer today, Jomana Bulos, doing a fantastic job behind the scenes. I hope you have a great week. Take care, everyone.